Hey guys, Sundown here. This is going to be my chapter review to Nanatsu no Taizai 299, Everything Will Be Frozen. Now, if the camera quality looks different, it's because it's on my phone, so it should be in 1080, but in 60 frames. So the color should be a bit darker and stuff like that, but 60 frames per second. Let's go. So, this chapter was a solid 9 out of 10. Some people are even calling it a 10 out of 10. Absolutely awesome chapter. I really enjoyed it. And if you go to the Boar's Hat, where we had Grieva, Naya, myself, Grim, Kaiten, and a bunch of other people, a bunch of other good reviewers, definitely check out the Boar's Hat if you want a cohesive, wholesome, holistic review of this chapter and Meliodas in general, the character of Meliodas, the character of people like Zeldris and things like that, where we think this chapter will take the manga and how we think it's going to end, things like that. Go check out the Boar's Hat before anything, because that was my initial kind of review alongside a lot of my boys. So definitely check that out. Now, the first and kind of bulk of the chapter, the scene I refer to it as Zeldris versus the world, because that's essentially what it was. And this scene continues Zeldris' struggles against Mael, but also extends it to everyone else in the vicinity. And I love how Mael tries to stop the fight, showing us yet again the type of man he's become. He acknowledges that his memories of being Zeldris' brother were fake, but also that he accepts that he was a brother in actuality to Zeldris for 3,000 years. So even though they were fake memories, he was actually Zeldris' brother for that time. So for this reason, he doesn't want to continue his fight against Zeldris. Something I feel was apparent throughout the entirety of the fight. You can see throughout the entire chapter that Mael doesn't really, he's willing to extensively damage Zeldris, but he's not really willing to actually go out there and try to kill the guy. Even though he does try to at least disable him slightly. So Zeldris chooses to continue fighting, taking a page out of his master's book, and creating a blade of darkness atop the hilt of his sword. Mael responds in kind with a Destructo disc around both of his hands. I mean, they're properly Destructo discs, and I feel like the weird thing here is this Mael's preferred method of fighting? I thought he would have used a light sword or something along those lines, something we've seen him utilize before. But this is what he chose to do against an opponent like Zeldris. You would have thought he would have used okay, this is my weapon of preference, this is my weapon of choice. Zeldris is no joke. I need to use a weapon I'm used to. And I'm not quite sure what to make of the fact that he uses these two Destructo discs. Very, very short, close quarters fighting type of weapon. I mean, it reminds me of that weapon where there's a handle with a circular blade, exactly like the same thing. Like the Tokami, what is his name? Aldini, the guy in Shokugeki, his Mezzaluna sword or something like that, Mezzaluna blade. I was like, really, come on, bro. But as they continue to fight, we see Zeldris' attention flitting between Mael and Merlin, and he kind of allows Mael to land hits on him quite frequently because of his divided attention. And Mael notices this and points out to Zeldris that he's panicking. He's like, yo, this is unusual to your character. You're usually cold, stoic, calculated, very, very focused on the fight, but you're split between two different things right now. So Mael, remembering his time as both Meliodas' and Zeldris' brother, asks Zeldris if the Holy War is worth allowing his only brother to become a being like the Demon King. And I had an issue with this because is being the Demon King that bad to begin with? Does being the Demon King innately make you an unlikable character or something like that? I'm not sure what Mael was trying to get at here. He's like, do you want your brother to become a being like that? I'm like, king of my race? I mean, that seems pretty dope. I mean, I'm not sure how to feel. There seems to be some sort of negative connotation alongside becoming the Demon King. Unless he's aware, Mael, this is, of the instability of mind when holding multiple commandments, which he is. I don't see why he'd say something like that unless he was referring to that. However, Meliodas should also be way more suited to holding these commandments than Mael ever was, being a demon and son of the Demon King. So I'm not too sure what he means. He seems to know that Meliodas is going to become twisted or something like that because of these commandments, or because he's going to become the Demon King. But I'm like, it doesn't necessarily have to go that way. That's just an assumption you're making, maybe even a presumption, considering that you don't have really any facts to base it off of. The Demon King himself seems to be pretty stable, seems to be pretty decent, as in he may be very cold, he may be a murderer and all that kind of stuff, but that's kind of his nature as a demon, as a cognizant, I'm not even sure if that's a word, but as a cognitive individual who can think for himself and stuff like that, he seems to be pretty clear and pretty intelligent. So Zeldris then does one of the most badass things this entire chapter. Not only does he get off the ground while answering Mile, he completely outpaces Mile's capability, his mental capacity to keep up with him. And he suddenly appears behind him. He's just suddenly behind Mile. And I was like, oh shit. And he allows Mile to turn and then slices him through the gut. Amazing part of the chapter. I was so hyped when I saw this part of the chapter. This was probably one of the best part of the chapter for me, besides the end. And even the end, it was like, the end was hype, but this, I don't know, it got me going, man. With Mile being shocked by the desperation of his once younger brother again, unable to understand what has driven Zeldris to such an extent, what has driven him into this corner where he really he cannot fail. What is happening with Zeldris right now? So as Mile falls, Zeldris turns his rage towards everyone else, in particular Merlin. He unleashes a heavy flurry of attacks, everyone trying to like guard Merlin essentially, only to give way to even more desperation once he sees that King has actually guarded his flurry of attacks with Pollen Garden. And I love how King tells Zeldris here that he's like, you got no chance of winning, just give it up, please. He says that whilst knowing the fact that he has nothing left in the tank himself. I was like, King, I love the fact that you had the balls to bluff in that situation. But to be fair to Zeldris, with almost no time left, he starts to throw multiple shots at King's barrier anyway, until Mile pops up like, surprise, motherfucker, and slices through Zeldris' back. Now, I thought Zeldris made the intelligent decision here, even though it was guided by desperation, and King really did a good job of holding on until Mile kind of healed himself. You can see the stars around him. He managed to just about heal through his gut, and then he took out Zeldris. So Mile is still confused here as to what is driving Zeldris to such an extent. Why is Zeldris going so far? And as Zeldris gets back up, Merlin's spell activates and the Chrono Coffin stops time within Meliodas' cocoon. Zeldris collapses, thinking just before that of Meliodas' promise to resurrect Gelda. So that's what's been driving him all this time. I think we were all kind of aware of that anyway, but it turns out Meliodas did in fact promise to resurrect Gelda. Suggesting that she is in fact dead, whereas I thought she was imprisoned. I'm not too sure. She might be dead. And Zeldris, as he's thinking about that promise, he's thinking of Gelda herself, and then he kind of collapses, and you can kind of see the pain in his face. And I feel like this is why Mile, although victorious, looks far from happy. He can still feel the pain of his this guy used to be his younger brother for 3,000 years, even though they were in prison. I'm not sure what they were doing in the prison. They were probably like best of buddies and shit like that, but this was once his younger brother, and he still empathizes with Zeldris, and he can feel his pain. He's like, this guy's been through shit. He's obviously doing this for a reason. And the fact that he didn't actively try to kill Zeldris, I mean, like when he popped it behind, why didn't he just decapitate him? There's a reason for that. It's because I feel like all the way through, Mile didn't actually want to kill Zeldris, and he was fighting more defensively rather than going full frontal and trying to dismantle the guy. Though everyone else does actually begin to celebrate their victory. We see Ruduciel finally reunite with his brother, choosing to be happy in his company rather than speaking words and saying like, I love you and shit like that. We see Elizabeth thanking Hendrickson for helping Margaret, and we see Merlin saying she's going to get Meliodas to buy her a whole bunch of booze for her help. By the way, it turns out that King was actually using Chastiofol to look at what was happening, to watch over everything that was happening and going on. I'm not sure how much I like this. I did mention it beforehand. I said something about Chastiofol. When Zeldris was like fighting against Chastiofol, the only reason why King would know where Escanor was when Mile caught him was if he could see with Chastiofol King's Escanor's trajectory and stuff like that. So it turns out he can actually see through Chastiofol, which royally pisses me off a bit. But it is what it is, so you know, it's just one of those things. And what I loved about this whole initial fight scene, so Zeldris versus the world, was seeing Zeldris act remarkably like his older brother Meliodas, no matter how different he may say he is. When it comes to his love for Gelda, Zeldris' desperation to have her return to him was astounding, and with him fighting against all the odds, trying to succeed in his brother's plan to make him the Demon King, in turn resurrecting Gelda. Meanwhile, Meliodas aims at becoming the Demon King, something Zeldris was kind of not actively doing, but aiming at prior to this whole debacle. And it's almost as if their personalities have been flipped, but not in a bad way. And what I felt this really showed, seeing Zeldris in this situation, seeing Meliodas in this situation, it just shows that more than anything, they are brothers and are similar in more ways than Zeldris would care to admit and would like to consider. Anyway, Hawk flies up to the top of the cocoon, calling out to Meliodas, and I was like, That's a nice detail, like having Hawk fly up to see if everything's okay and shit like that, calling out to Meliodas. But surely if time had been stopped within the cocoon, Meliodas wouldn't have been able to hear anything going on outside anyway. So the call is therefore irrelevant and doesn't add to the story really. Well, it adds to the story, but technically speaking, if you think about it for a hot second, it's irrelevant. Now, none of that really matters though, because the cocoon had been sliced open from behind, and suddenly darkness encompasses everything. Now, just before this, actually, I'll mention that at the end. Now, the Stigma Squad collectively shit their pants as a new and improved Meliodas steps onto the field, looking a hell of a lot like Estarossa / Mael, more like Mael with his hair down. Now, in the podcast, I said Meliodas may have brought darkness with him, encompassing the sky and everything, but I didn't actually have the chapter up when everyone was arguing their point. However, actually rereading this chapter, I'm not so sure it could. The darkness that we see when Meliodas first comes out and we see Diane with all the sins and stuff next to her, and there's darkness all over the place, that could have very well just been for dramatic effect. The panel showing Stigma's face were all light, but then again, the panel where we see Meliodas' face is dark yet again. So I think it could be either one, but I think it would be really cool if eternal darkness accompanies Meliodas. So just Meliodas' presence brings darkness to the area, showing just how powerful he was. I think that would be much more than just a symbol. It would show how powerful this dude has become. Another thing, at this point, surely we need to question who the hell Meliodas' mother is. I mean, like, the dude has blonde hair, looks a hell of a lot like his fake brother Mael, and was able to use his innate ability to lop off the arm of his father, the Demon King. Now, this only points towards one question. I mean, like, Zeldris may have had a different mother, we don't know. But is Meliodas part goddess? Let me know what y'all think about that. I mean, like, Grimm is someone who's a big advocate of this, and to be fair, I'm feeling his suggestion. I'm thinking Meliodas has got to be something different to the Demon King. There's got to be a reason why the Demon King sees so much in Meliodas, and why he wants to get rid of this emotional side of him, this kind of lighter side to him, this whole kind of psychomacy between darkness and light. What is it about Meliodas that's so different? Why is he the chosen one? There's got to be something to him. Why is he the only blonde one out of his siblings? Well, out of his brother and him, who share their looks, their height, stature, strength, and all that stuff. He's the only one that has blonde hair and possibly green eyes, I think. Like Zeldris, I think his eyes are just brown. So, like, what is it about Meliodas that's different genetically, that he has freaking blonde hair and stuff like that? You don't just get blonde hair if both your parents had black hair. I mean, like, unless weird shit goes down about grandparents. Let's not go into genetics. That's some convoluted shit. But I feel like Meliodas is different, and we need to find out who the hell his mother was. Another thing, where the Fook is banned. He can't be looking for Kuroshu's, because to our knowledge he has no idea where it is, unless Merlin did a Merlin and told him where to find it, which would be bullshit. The only other reason he wouldn't be there is to find Meliodas' emotions, and we don't actually know where they'd exit Purgatory. I mean, like, you'd assume if they exited Purgatory that they'd just appear in Meliodas, but I don't think that's correct. So I assume Ban is on a little adventure to kind of find them, and possibly, I think his emotions would be where he lost his emotions, so where he died against the Ten Commandments and went to Purgatory from there and then lost his emotions. So I think his emotions might be where Meliodas died against the Ten Commandments. Third point, I was going to say finally, but third point, where the Fook is the original demon. That sly mofo probably thinks he's like lost everyone's attention. He thinks we think he's just vanished, but I know that sucker is just waiting to do something underhanded. And we've got King, who's more or less run out of gas, probably the same with Mael, who seemed to be huffing and puffing by the end. Ruduciel is starting to decompose real quick. Merlin is fatigued. Escanor has no power left. Gartha has no arms. Diane is Diane. But where he at though? Where is the original demon? And finally, the reason why this isn't a 10 out of 10 for me is because Chrono Coffin was a device that was used to no end and therefore served a purpose within the story which made it irrelevant, there's another word I'm looking for, I've used it so many times in these, but basically the plot device of Chrono Coffin was irrelevant. And I'm not sure how to feel about it, because surely you can't just include things in the story which result in success or nothing. I mean, like, because if plot devices only resulted in success, then you wouldn't be able to see the failures of things. And I'm calling this Chrono Coffee into failure because it was built up for a couple chapters and then resulted in nothing, and what was going to happen happened anyway. But surely there's examples of that in multiple classics and stuff like that where, whoa, I'm not sure why I did that, where a character put in an effort to do something and then resulted in failure, and the story continued to go the way it was gonna go, even though they tried to stop it from happening. So stuff like, I mean, like the end of Raiders: The Lost Ark, we have all the way through Indiana and stuff. They're making sure that I think that they don't open up the Ark, and then they open the Ark and everyone dies, and the story hasn't changed. But yeah, I mean, like, I can't really complain about that point, like I said, because it's either you have a plan and it succeeds and everything's hunky-dory, or you have a plan, there's a dilemma and it fails and the story continues the way it would have done. So I'm not sure if I can really rip on the chapter for that, but I don't know. The Chrono Coffin I just didn't like anyway, and I think a few of the guys, Naya, Grieve, and possibly Grim, Kaiten, I think a lot of them would have agreed with that point. But let me know what you guys think of that. That's the end of this review. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow, maybe even Sunday, to get my One Piece and My Hero review to you guys. So I'll see you guys in a bit.